Because
One of the advantages of living in a country as small as Togo is that, disregarding visas, it is very easy to visit neighboring countries. And in just a 4-hour taxi ride plus negotiation time, we arrived in Abomey. The first impressions of the country are that, except for not having connection or internet on our phones, it seems like we haven't left Togo. But despite their similarities, Benin is a place that hides a rich history and culture worth knowing. Abomey is known for being the historical capital of the Kingdom of Dahomey, a powerful state that existed from the 17th century to the 19th century. The city was founded around 1625 and became the political and cultural center of the kingdom. One of the highlights of Abomey is the Royal Palaces of Abomey, declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1985. These palaces are a set of buildings constructed by the kings of Dahomey to serve as royal residences, as well as to host important rituals and ceremonies of the kingdom. In Abomey, the royal palaces are a set of buildings that house a rich history and culture. Originally, there were at least 12 palaces built by different kings of Dahomey, each with its own unique bas-relief telling the story of its reign. However, some of these palaces were destroyed during conflicts and wars. Some of the most notable palaces include the Palace of King Gesso, the Palace of King Glele, and the Palace of King Behansin. Each of these palaces had a specific purpose, either as a royal residence, a place for religious rituals, or to accommodate soldiers and dignitaries. The kings of Dahomey were known to have multiple wives as part of their position and status. Polygamy was not only related to the consolidation of political alliances and the expansion of the royal family, but it was also linked to the cultural and religious beliefs of the time. In some African cultures, polygamy was seen as a normal and accepted practice, and the king's wives often had specific roles in the court and society. But if there's something to highlight about the Kingdom of Dahomey, it's that it created one of the most feared armies in the history of West Africa. King Aho Wedbadja decided to welcome all the girls who were abandoned by their families and train them to become athletes, keeping the fastest and strongest to create the army of the Amazons. These women, known as the elephant hunters, were able to endure more pain and worse tortures than any man and did not hesitate to decapitate and drink the blood of their enemies. For over 2 centuries, these women, along with the eunuchs, were the only ones in charge of protecting the kingdom and were feared by peoples across the continent. They were considered consorts of the king, so they were obliged to remain celibate and no man could dare to look at them. They also took part in state decisions and were considered almost divine. The decline of the Amazons came with the arrival of the French colonizers. After the fall of the Dahomey army, many of these women had to integrate, not without problems, into civilian life. Many of them married, others were sold as slaves, and some were forced to participate in circuses, where they were exhibited as animals in different parts of Europe and North America. Today, a huge sculpture in the center of the city of Cotonou pays tribute to them. And for the past year, you can find on Netflix the movie The Woman King, which, despite the differences, honors the great role of these women in the history of the Kingdom of Dahomey. And after a quick visit to the Kingdom of Dahomey, we traveled to a place worthy of a fantasy novel.
pula pasir. Pula kai sofa pula. Ya boleh pergi.
On the way to this place, we found no cars or roads, only merchants and fishermen working peacefully on the river. But the calm ends when somebody comes to welcome us to the city. In the 16th century, the Tonifu communities were forced to abandon their villages, fleeing from the Fon, who were kidnapping people to sell as slaves to the Europeans. And to protect themselves, they decided to build a city on Lake Nokwe, and thus Ganvier was born, the saved village. Currently, 30,000 people sail its streets in canoes. Each family has 3 boats, one for the father, another for the mother, and a third one for the children. Many of the houses have solar panels to receive electricity. There is a well that supplies drinking water to the city, and they even have a beautiful floating market. In Ganvier, there is a school, a church, a mosque, and even restaurants and hotels for tourists. Today, many people refer to Ganvier as the Venice of Africa, but I believe such a special place deserves no comparisons.
Very good.
And without forgetting that Gambier was a city created by people who fled slavery, we arrived in Ouidah to learn a little more about this dark side of human history. This city emerges in history as an epicenter of the transatlantic slave trade between the 17th and the 19th centuries. In this historical plot, the slave market in Ouidah played a crucial role, being a place where enslaved Africans were bought and sold by European traders, mainly Portuguese. This market was the final point of the heartbreaking slave route, which started from Abomey and after several days of travel on foot, led the captives to the coast to be embarked on slave ships bound for America. The journey towards dehumanization continued in Ouidah, where the memorial of Sumac stands, a moving site dedicated to the memory of the victims of the slave trade. This memorial, full of emotion, pays tribute to those who suffered the cruel journey from the capture to their final destination. Close by is the mass grave, a symbolic place representing the final resting place of those who did not survive the inhuman condition of slavery. And almost at the end of this tragic story, the imposing door of no return stands, part of an ancient Portuguese fort. This door, as its name indicates, symbolized the point of no return for the slaves before embarking for America, representing the brutality of a system that denied them any possibility of returning to their homeland. Nowadays, we can find this sign in Ouidah that says that slavery is abolished, but new forms of slavery still exist across the world. Forced labor, human trafficking, debt servitude, forced marriage, sexual exploitation, child soldiers constitute the new forms of slavery to fight. Also, one of the most important cultural aspects of Benin is voodoo. This animist religion considers that all beings have souls. In the same city of Ouidah, we find a temple dedicated to python snakes, which for this religion are the representation of important deities. Here live more than 30 royal pythons. Supposedly harmless, our guide said that they are born without teeth, and they protect the entire village. Several times a week, they are released, and the neighbors welcome them into their homes, take care of them, and then return them to the temple. To visit this sacred place, it is essential to wash your hands with purified water and remove your shoes before entering as a sign of respect. During the visit to the temple, tourists have the opportunity, almost the obligation, to hold one of these snakes, and it is said that if a royal python bites you, it will protect you from the venom of wild snakes. We were not lucky enough to get bitten, so we continued our journey with the fear of being bitten by another snake, and personally with certain doubts about whether this place is nothing more than a tourist attraction with questionable morality regarding the treatment of animals. After our express tour of Benin, we arrived in the south to enjoy the beach, recharge our energies for the return to Togo and the beginning of the new journey.